My name is Claire Ashton. I'm 33 years old, and I run a horse rescue ranch in rural Tennessee. I spend most of my days reading animals. The way a mare pins her ears when she's been hit before. The way a gelding flinches at a raised hand. 8 years of that work, and I got pretty good at spotting damage. In horses, anyway. In my own family, I missed every sign. What my brother-in-law did at our family reunion last June, and what happened 69 days later at my mother's birthday party, taught me that the most dangerous predator isn't the one who bites. It's the one who smiles at your table and calls you family. I didn't grow up dreaming about horses. I grew up in a small valley town, daughter of a cafeteria worker and a machinist. My first career was numbers. 3 years as a staff accountant after college, reconciling ledgers, filing quarterly taxes for local businesses. Good work, steady. But every Saturday, I drove out to a neighbor's farm to help with her horses. And every Monday morning, I sat at my desk thinking about fences instead of spreadsheets. At 25, I found 12 acres with a barn that had more holes than roof. My 3 years of savings, plus a small business loan, covered the down payment. I signed the papers on a Tuesday and started pulling rotten boards off the barn walls that same afternoon. That first winter, I had 5 rescue horses and a space heater I carried between stalls because the barn had no insulation. I learned fence repair from YouTube. I learned equine nutrition from a retired vet down the road. I learned that if you show up at 5 in the morning every single day and do the ugly work nobody wants to do, eventually the ugly work turns into something real. 8 years later, Ashton Ridge Rescue boarded 22 horses. I ran a farm store selling leather goods, honey, and preserves I made myself. I'd built an equine therapy program for veterans dealing with PTSD. 4 sessions a week, no charge. Every evening, I sat at my desk and reconciled the day's numbers down to the cent. That habit would save my ranch. I just didn't know it yet. My sister Paige is 4 years younger. We were close the way sisters are when there's nobody else around. Same bedroom, same bus stop, same hand-me-down winter coat. Paige was the social one, the pretty one, the one who knew everyone's name at church. I was the one who balanced Mom's checkbook when Dad got sick. Paige married Grant Hollister when she was 24. She'd known him 7 months. Mom didn't say no. Mom never said no to Paige. But I caught her standing at the kitchen sink the night before the wedding, scrubbing the same pot for 10 minutes straight. Grant was the kind of man who could talk for 20 minutes without saying anything true. Good handshake, wide smile. A habit of steering every conversation toward money, specifically, other people's money. The first time he visited the ranch, he walked the property like a buyer. This place must be worth, what, $500,000? Pretty good for a girl who used to do other people's taxes. I didn't correct him. I poured him iced tea and showed him the barn. That was my pattern. Not confronting, not correcting, just absorbing. 18 months before the reunion, Grant called on a Wednesday night. Needed $3,000 for a car repair. His truck's transmission was shot and the shop wouldn't release it without payment. I sent it that same hour. He said he'd pay me back in 2 weeks. 18 months later, I was still waiting. I brought it up once at a Sunday dinner at Mom's. Grant laughed and waved his fork. "Come on, Claire, we're family." Mom nodded along. Paige looked at her plate. I let it go because $3,000 wasn't worth losing my sister. That's the math you do when you love someone. You weigh the money against the relationship, and you let the money lose. The problem is that people like Grant never stop doing that math in their favor. There was one other thing I should have paid more attention to. During a visit to the farm store, Grant asked me, "You use QuickBooks or what?" I told him I used my bank's business app on the store tablet. Just small talk, I thought, just making conversation. Mom called in early May with a reunion idea. A real family reunion, she said. Extended family, the whole bunch, while we're all still healthy enough to enjoy it. She wanted it at the ranch. Of course she did. I spent 3 weeks getting ready. Rented tables and chairs, hired a local barbecue outfit, strung lights across the barn entrance, set up pony rides for the kids with my gentlest mare. The whole thing ran about $4,000 out of my pocket, which I didn't mention because mentioning it would make Mom feel guilty and make Paige feel compared. 30 people showed up under a cloudless sky, burgers sizzling, kids chasing each other through the pasture gate. It was the kind of day that makes you think family is worth every penny. I was running the farm store register on my tablet, the same iPad I used for the banking app, ringing up honey jars and leather key fobs for cousins I hadn't seen in years. Around 2 o'clock, one of my boarding mares spooked at a balloon and kicked her stall door. My stable hand radioed me. I set the tablet on the counter and told Grant, who was standing right there, beer in hand, "Hey, can you watch the register for a few minutes? I've got a horse situation." He smiled. "Sure thing, Claire. Go handle your animals." That was the first time Grant had ever volunteered for anything. I was in the barn for about 8 minutes. When I walked back to the farm store, Grant was behind the counter, scrolling the tablet. He looked up fast. "Just checking if the card reader synced," he said. The card reader was sitting on the counter. Unplugged, I glanced at the screen. The banking app was minimized but still open in the background. I'd been logged in earlier and hadn't logged out in the morning rush. I picked up the tablet, closed the app, and set the screen lock. 8 minutes. That's all he needed. But I didn't feel the alarm yet. This was a family reunion, my sister's husband, the man who'd held my niece at her baptism. You don't process threat in those conditions. Your brain files it under odd and moves on. Later that evening, while everyone was eating cake, Paige pulled me aside near the pasture fence. "Claire, how much does it actually cost to run this place?" Like really, I gave her a ballpark. Feed, vet, insurance, labor, utilities. About $7,000 or $8,000 a month. She nodded slowly. "That's a lot," not sympathetically, calculatingly, like she was measuring something. An aunt interrupted us to take a family photo. Paige smiled for the camera. In the photo, we're standing shoulder to shoulder, arms around each other. Sisters, I keep that photo on my fridge. It reminds me that the people closest to you are the ones who can reach deepest into your pockets. Everyone left by 7. I cleaned up alone, which was standard. By 9:30, I was at my desk doing what I did every night, reconciling the day's numbers. I opened the banking app on my laptop and looked at the operating account balance. $3,847. I stared at the screen. On Friday, the balance had been $50,847. 3 transfers had gone out that afternoon. 18,000 at 2:14 p.m., 15,000 at 2:22, 14,000 at 2:31. Total, $47,000, gone in 17 minutes. The recipient fields showed initials GH. I called the bank's after-hours line. The automated system confirmed the transfers were completed. A live agent told me that because the transactions originated from a registered device on my account, they couldn't reverse them without a formal dispute, and filing a dispute on a Saturday night meant waiting until Monday. I changed every password. I enabled every additional security layer I could find. I did everything right, and it didn't matter because the money was already gone. I sat in the barn that night on an overturned bucket, pressed against Juniper, the first horse I ever rescued, a one-eyed thoroughbred left in a field. $3,800. That was 3 weeks of feed for 22 horses, maybe 4 if I stretched it. After that, I would have to start choosing which animals to send away. Sunday morning, I called Grant. He picked up cheerful. "Hey Claire, great party yesterday. Lily hasn't stopped talking about the pony." I didn't small talk him. "Grant, I need to talk to you about 3 transfers totaling $47,000 from my business account." 4 seconds of silence. Then a sound, not a laugh, more like a snort. The exhale of a man who thinks a question is beneath him. "Oh, that. Yeah. Listen, Claire, we needed it. Paige didn't want to ask because she knew you'd make it into a whole thing. We're behind on bills, mortgage stuff. We'll pay it back. You accessed my business account without my knowledge and transferred $47,000. That's not borrowing, Grant. That's theft." His voice changed. The charm drained out like water through gravel. Theft. Come on, we needed it more than you. You've got your ranch, your horses, your little store. We've got 2 kids and a mortgage we can't make. And frankly, Claire, you owe your sister. She's been watching you play farm princess for years while we scrape by. We needed it more than you. I let those words sit in my chest for a moment, not because they hurt, they did, but because they clarified something. This wasn't a man who felt guilty about taking. This was a man who felt entitled to it. I hung up. Monday morning, Mom called before I'd finished feeding the horses. "Chelsea, honey," Paige called me. "I know you're upset, but they're going through a hard time. Mom, he stole $47,000 from my operating account. He borrowed it. There's a difference." And frankly, she paused, choosing words. "Family doesn't keep score, Claire. I'd heard that line my whole life. When I paid for Paige's car repair. When I covered Mom's dental bill. When I lent Grant $3,000 he never returned. The score was always the same. Claire gives, everyone takes, and anyone who notices the pattern is the problem. Mom, $47,000 isn't a score. It's my payroll. It's my feed supplier. It's 4 vet bills due next week. If I don't get that money back, I start losing animals. Can't you take out a loan or dip into savings? My savings built this ranch. My operating account runs it." He emptied the operating account. "Just let it go, Claire. I don't want this to tear our family apart." I looked out the office window. 22 horses in the pasture. My stable hand hauling hay from the storage shed. The farm store still decorated with reunion lights I hadn't taken down. Letting it go meant letting the ranch go. And the ranch was the only thing in my life that had never lied to me. "I'll handle it, Mom, asterisk," I said, and I meant it, just not the way she hoped. Monday afternoon, I drove to the bank. The branch manager, a woman named Diane who'd handled the ranch account since I opened it, pulled up the transaction log and turned the monitor so I could see. 3 transfers. Device, my iPad. IP address, my ranch Wi-Fi network. Timestamps, 2/14/222, 2:31 p.m. the exact window I was in the barn. "The system shows these were initiated from your registered device," Diane said. From our end, they read as authorized. "Someone else used my tablet while I was in the barn. I have a witness who can confirm my location." Diane folded her hands. Without a police report establishing unauthorized access, the bank treats this as the account holder's transaction. "Then I need a police report." She nodded. "I'd recommend it." I drove home and called Ruth Calloway, my CPA for 6 years, the most methodical person I'd ever met. She came to the ranch Tuesday evening with her laptop and a box of printed records. We sat at the kitchen table, and she walked me through what she'd found. The 3 transfers landed in 2 accounts. 2 went to an account under Grant Hollister alone, $18,000 and $14,000. 1 went to a joint account under Grant and Paige Hollister, $15,000. From Grant's personal account, Ruth traced 2 outgoing wires in the days that followed. $18,000 went to an entity called Hollister Property Group LLC. She'd checked the state corporation records. The LLC had been dissolved 6 months earlier. The second wire, $14,000, went to a sports betting platform. My stomach dropped. I kept my face still. And the $15,000 in the joint account, withdrawn in cash, Ruth said, ATM pulls over 48 hours. 4 separate transactions of $3,750 each, just under the daily limit. Cash, no trail after the ATM. Likely paying off people who didn't take digital payments. Creditors, bookmakers, people owed money in the physical world. She looked at me directly. Chelsea, this isn't borrowing. The money was moved, split, and partially cashed out within 2 days. That's concealment. A prosecutor would call this larceny by unauthorized access. What do I need? Everything you just showed me, a sworn statement. The bank's device log proving you weren't the one who initiated the transfers. I was in the barn. Miguel saw me. Then you have an alibi and a trail. Document everything. Emotion won't hold up. Numbers will. Friday morning, I drove to the county sheriff's office and asked for Deputy Earl Beckett, a man in his 50s who'd been part of our veterans therapy program. His son, a Marine, had been one of my first participants. We sat in a small interview room and I laid everything out: bank statements, transaction log showing the transfers originated from my tablet during the 8-minute window I was in the barn, Ruth's forensic summary tracing the funds to a dissolved LLC and a gambling website, my stable hand's written statement confirming my location during the transfer timestamps. Beckett looked through every page, making small marks with a pencil. When he finished, he leaned back. "Ma'am, you've done half my job for me." He paused. "You sure you want to pursue this?" "It's your sister's husband. He took $47,000 from the account that feeds 22 rescue horses. He used it for gambling. If I don't recover it, those animals lose their home." "So yes, Deputy, I'm sure." He filed the report, assigned a case number, and explained the process. I thanked him and drove home. On the way, I passed Page's subdivision. Grant's silver truck sat in the driveway, the same truck I'd paid $3,000 to fix. Lily's pink bicycle lay on its side in the front yard, Mason's tricycle next to it. These were my niece and nephew. Their father was the man I just reported to law enforcement. I kept driving. The following Tuesday, Page pulled into my gravel drive without warning. The kids tumbled out before the engine stopped and ran straight for the barn asking about the pony. I let my stable hand take them to the round pen while Paige and I stood inside the farm store. She looked smaller than I remembered. Dark circles, nails bitten down. "Claire, I know what Garrett did was wrong." She started with that, an admission wrapped in a qualifier. "But you filed a police report against family. He stole from me, Paige. He was desperate. You don't understand what it's been like. The bills, the collectors calling at dinner. The mortgage company sending letters. He didn't want to ask you because," her voice cracked, "because he's too proud and too stupid." I waited. There's a technique I use with frightened horses. You stand still, you breathe slowly, and you let them come to you. I used it on my sister. And then she said it. "You have your horses, we have nothing." I looked at her. Then I looked through the farm store window at the barn. 22 animals who'd been starved, neglected, abandoned. Animals nobody wanted. Animals I'd hauled back from nothing with 5 a.m. Mornings and years of ugly work. Animals now at risk because her husband had helped himself to the account that kept them alive. "Paige," I said quietly, "I built this from nothing, with my own hands." "No one gave it to me." She didn't answer. "And he took $47,000 of it in 17 minutes and spent it on a gambling site and a shell company he'd already shut down." "That's not desperation. That's contempt." She wiped her eyes. "So what happens now? Now the sheriff's office investigates. The DA reviews the evidence. And Grant answers for what he did. And us." I thought about the photo on my fridge. 2 sisters, arms around each other, one of them already knowing what the other one had just lost. "That depends on you, asterisk," I said. "Not on me." She left without the kids seeing her cry. I watched her minivan pull back out of the gravel drive, and I stood there a long time before going back to work. The investigation took 11 weeks. Grant was charged with larceny by unauthorized access and computer fraud. In the end, he pleaded guilty to avoid trial. The court ordered full restitution. $47,000, paid back in structured installments with interest. He also received 3 years of supervised probation and was required to complete a financial accountability program. The money came back slowly, but it came back. My mother called me the night after the sentencing. She didn't say she was sorry. She said, "I hope you're satisfied." I told her I wasn't satisfied. I was solvent, there's a difference. Paige and I don't speak the way we used to. Maybe we never will. I've made peace with that. Some gaps open slowly over years. Some open in 17 minutes. The result is the same either way. What I know now, that I didn't know before, is this. The people who call you family the loudest are sometimes the ones watching to see what you'll let them take. And the most important thing you can do for the people who genuinely need you, the ones in your care, the ones who can't speak for themselves, is to protect what you built. Every morning at 5, I walk the fence line before anyone else is awake. 22 horses in the pasture, the barn solid, the feed room full, the accounts balanced. And somewhere in that quiet, I know exactly what I almost lost, and I know exactly what it took to keep it.